they know that these are policies that kill jobs, and they'll drive the economy right back into recession if we don't change course. And the truth is that your current congressman, Congressman Boucher, has been a part of that problem in Washington, D.C. And to get America back on the right track, to change the direction of our country, we have to change our representation in Washington, D.C. right here in the 9th Congressional District. Now, when Morgan goes to Congress, I can tell you this, he's not going to support those anti-business policies. He's not going to support card check, not going to support cap and trade. He's going to work to rein in the EPA and get it off the backs of American business. He's going to work to get spending under control, to bring the debt down. He's going to vote to make those tax cuts permanent for every single American taxpayer. He's going to pursue the kind of policies that will help us get the economy moving again and create jobs. So my message today to the people of the 9th District is a simple message. And the message is this: if you want to get the economy moving again and create jobs, you've got to elect a congressman pro-business policy, who's been pursuing anti-business policies. The battle to get America back on the right track starts right here in the 9th Congressional District. So I am honored to be here today to make a couple campaign stops with Morgan, and he's going to be out working hard, I know, for the next 11 days. He needs you to do the same. I will just say this about this man. I have known him and I've worked with him for the last 15 years in state government. And Morgan Griffith is the real deal. He's got the right philosophy, he has the right policies, the right approach to government. He is smart, he is hardworking, he understands the 9th District, and he will bring the kind of representation that we desperately need to Washington, D.C. to get the country back on the right track. When the campaign started, I told Morgan I'd be for him or against him, whichever helped him the most. And he asked me to be for him. To be here campaigning with you today, and I look forward to when the votes are counted on November 2nd, and you, my friend, will be the next congressman in Virginia's 9th District. Morgan Griffith.
Little bitty son there, thank you so much. Mr. Lewis, thank you for letting us be here on your property and doing this today. You know, one of the things you talked about, Bill, is extremely important. You talk about those tax cuts that we want to make permanent, the ones that have been in place now for a decade, and businesses are concerned about it, and they affect businesses. You know, a lot of times folks want to say, well, it doesn't affect that much. You know, particularly if it $50,000, shouldn't be that big a deal. But we're looking at a business here where I'd be willing to bet that with their investment, that would be affected by the death tax. If they decided they wanted to pass that on to their children, they'd have a hard time because the government will come in and take some of that money. And those tax cuts will not allow that to happen. What did Rick Boucher do? He voted to adjourn early, so they didn't have to take up making those tax cuts permanent before the recess. And ladies and gentlemen, he had the power. Some of you think, well, maybe he didn't, you know. But he did. He could have made a difference. The vote was 209 to 209. His good friend Nancy Pelosi had to break the tie. And folks, as you all know, and you know, you stand up there making parliamentary procedure rulings on behalf of the Senate. I've been one of the guys leading the fight in the House for years to make sure we follow the rules, we do the rules right, we have fair rules. It may be viewed as just a procedural vote, but if that procedural vote doesn't pass, the leadership of the Democrat Party would have had to have gone back to square one and tried to figure out what are we going to do about those tax cuts. And what they did by adjourning, and what Rick Boucher did by, in essence, casting the deciding vote, because had he voted with the 39 Democrats who were more conservative and wanted to make a decision on that issue so the voters would know, and he voted with them, they would have had to go back to square one. And I submit to you that they would have had to have dealt with the tax cuts, and they would have voted to extend the tax cuts at least for 2 more years, if not making them permanent. And businesses out here in Southwest Virginia and in Kansas and in Texas, California, and Alaska would have been able to start making some decisions on spending some of that money. They would have seen that as a business-friendly gesture. Instead, they delayed it until December. Now, you all think that a lame duck Congress that's been thrown out of power is going to do something to help business in December? No, exactly. They're not. They may pass something. They may pass something that's gives them some ability to say, oh, we extended part of it. But they're not going to do what's going to help business. And Rick Boucher is directly responsible for that decision not having already been made, because he casually cast a vote along with his good friend Nancy Pelosi to adjourn this session early. And folks, people say all the time, Morgan ads seem to be negative. And I know that they may seem to be that way, but we're just telling the truth. And they think it's negative. I want everybody here to know, I did not make Barack Obama come to Bristol, Virginia and say, I want everybody to know, I love Rick Boucher. I didn't make President Obama do that. I didn't make Rick Boucher endorse President Obama in the nomination fight and be the first major Virginia politician to do so. He beat Tim Kaine by 2 weeks making that endorsement. I had nothing to do with that. So if telling people that is negative, I'm sorry, but it is the truth. And I did not make Rick Boucher vote with Nancy Pelosi or the Democrat majority, if you want to split hairs, 96.4% of the time. I did not make him do that. I promise you. Rick Boucher did that. It's interesting, he has this ad up, you may not have seen it. He's got this ad up where he says, they say I voted with Nancy Pelosi 96.4% of the time. That's absurd. Well, yes, it is absurd. I can't imagine any elected official other than Rick Boucher voting with Nancy Pelosi 96.4% of the time. But he did it. He did it. Now, I've got to be fair. I want to be fair. Roanoke Times came in to check, do one of these fact check things. And they went back a couple of years and they determined that it was probably fairer, more accurate number to say he only votes with Nancy Pelosi 91% of the time. And as I have said to the folks who are doing the tracking for Mr. Boucher, we have a nice gentleman here today. He's always been very polite when you say that. You may not be on the same side of the aisle, but you've always been very polite, and I appreciate that. And I have said to that camera a couple of times, okay, if you will admit that you vote with Nancy Pelosi 91% of the time, I'll change my number. I won't say 96 anymore, because I don't know any other politician or any other person of any leadership in Southwest Virginia who thinks that Nancy Pelosi, the Democrat majority in Congress, is right even 91% of the time. So I take that risk in saying that, but I believe the right number is 96.4, and I will happily stand behind that, along with the Washington Post, and I think it's either Open Secrets or there's another group out there that keeps track of these things that has the same number, 96.4. So I apologize if that sounds negative. We're just telling folks the truth. But I do want to make sure that you all know, and you all wouldn't be here if you weren't supporters, I want you all to know there's a very positive story to tell. And Lieutenant Governor Bolling, I appreciate you mentioning that. And that is that I have served in the Virginia legislature. We have a balanced budget. It's required by the Constitution of the state of Virginia. And that means we have to make the tough decisions. And when I go to Congress, we will make the tough decisions and we will balance the budget. And the only way that we can guarantee for my kids and my grandkids down the road that we will continue to have a balanced budget is if we make a balanced budget amendment with exceptions for time of war and emergencies. Now, you ready for that? Boucher has said he will get the budget balance as well. It was made last night. He said, we're going to balance that budget. We're going to have a commission. It's going to take 8 months to figure out how we need to do it. Well, ladies and gentlemen, I thought that was Congress's job. So I submit to you, ladies and gentlemen, Congress needs to balance the budget. We're not going to be able to do it in a year. They've dug a hole so deep. And as you said earlier today, the best way to get out of a hole is to stop digging. They dug a hole so deep that I don't know that we can get out of it in a year. But by golly, we've got to start cutting the budget. We've got to start being tough, figuring out silly programs out there we can eliminate. My favorite one so far of this campaign is the study for ants in Africa and the Asian Pacific. Now, you know, I love studying things like that, Bill, but that ought to be private money, not taxpayer money.
Amen to that.
I also think in these times of economic stress that maybe Congress would feel it a little bit better if they took a pay cut. There are lots of people out here who are working jobs where they've had to take a pay cut or have no pay raise for years. And I think Congress ought to feel the pain, and they ought to take a pay cut. And now I would like a little bit more, but I've proposed 10% because last year's Congress wouldn't even agree to a 5% pay cut, the bill that was put in by a Democrat. They wouldn't even vote for that. But I think if we could get a 10% pay cut and then clip back some of the benefits. As you know, it was reported this year, broke on Not Larry Sabato, and that there was that Mr. Boucher used about $30,000 to purchase a car out of campaign funds. And that's legal. I don't want to mislead anybody, that is legal. May not be what he ought to have done, because there's a lot of things you ought not do that are legal. But it was legal. What astounded me was part of his response was, well, at least I didn't get a car at taxpayers' expense. Members of the House are entitled to lease a car through the House of Representatives at taxpayers' expense. Why? They make $173,000. Even if we did my 10% pay cut, they'd be making $155,000, ladies and gentlemen. Why in the world would they want or think that the American people should pay for them to have a car? Now, Mr. Boucher doesn't do that. I always try to be fair because I don't need to make up stuff. We got too much good stuff out there that's true. And he does not do that. But there are congressmen who do it, and we ought to take it out of they ought not be able to have that benefit. And I know that that won't balance the budget, but if the Congress takes the lead and cuts their own, then maybe we can get a lot of other agencies to say, you know, we really don't need to do that ant study. Maybe we don't need to do this or that or the other. We can start cutting the budget back. In Virginia, we've made the tough choices, and we've made those cuts. In Virginia, we've made the business-friendly decisions that have made Virginia, in my time as majority leader, the best state in the union, in your time as lieutenant governor, the best state in the union in which to do business. We voted on laws that have made Virginia one of the best states in the nation in which to raise a family. Virginia is a good place do business and raise a family, but that doesn't do us any good if the national policies long-term make the United States a bad place in which to do business and make the United States a place where we don't have jobs for my kids, that they can stay here in Southwest Virginia and prosper here with jobs that are good-paying jobs for their future. And so, ladies and gentlemen, I submit to you that we have got to make some changes in Washington if we want to continue to have the lifestyle that we've grown accustomed to. And as you pointed out, the only way to make those changes in Washington is to change congressmen. We do believe that this will be a close election. The polls are trending in our direction, and we believe that we can win this. But they cannot win it without each and every one of your help. And I will tell you, and every time I tell this story, I get a little chill bumps because I think it's true. This is one of the most important races, if not the most important race in the East. It has developed into a race of national proportion because if you want to send a message to Washington, this is the place to send it. We have 4 contested races, 4 heavily contested races in Virginia. Nye versus Fimian. 2 years ago, that seat was held by a Republican. I'm sorry, Nye versus Ridgel, excuse me. If Ridgel wins, you know what the